You don't think so?
One, and we are live. Oh, yeah.
Good evening. Good.
Yeah.
All right. Good evening, everybody. It is October 25th, and I will start, as always, by reading our vision statement. The Ashland Public Schools is a forward-thinking district that cultivates the academic and social-emotional growth of each student through a supportive, collaborative, innovative, and challenging environment. Students will develop into self-motivated, resilient, lifelong learners who embrace their role as responsible contributors to a global community. This meeting is being recorded by WACA Cable TV. Our order of business this evening: call to order, opening procedures, agenda review and adoption. There will be time for public comment. Our administrative items include the superintendent's goals. We will not be discussing MASS, MASC resolutions this evening. The superintendent's update, if there is one, assistant superintendent's update, if there is one, warrant approvals, minutes from October 11th, 2023, gifts and donations, committee reports of activities, member updates, action items, and then we will adjourn. So I will take attendance and ask if everyone's okay with the agenda. Paul?
Yes.
Aaron?
Hearing yes.
Mark?
Hearing yes.
Hearing yes. Tina is absent this evening.
Lori, do you want to clarify why we're skipping the MASC?
Yes, I was going to do that when we get down to that, but essentially, number 2, MASS, MASC has been taken off the agenda because there are a number of conflicts and nobody is available to do that, so we are not going to be discussing the resolutions or sending a representative to that. So there's no need to talk about it.
There we go.
All right, I'm going to ask if there are any members of the public. I don't see any here. I don't know if you see any online, Mr. Adams.
No one.
Who want to give public comments? Seeing none, we're going to move right into the major item on our agenda this evening, which are the goals for the year for the superintendent.
Great, thank you. I'm just going to put this in full screen mode. So, as you know, each year we have to set superintendent's goals for the year. And at our last meeting, we discussed the strategic plan and where we were with the strategic plan, and that we had identified 9 indicators, strategic objectives that we wanted to focus on for the 23-24 school year. So basically, in essence, creating a district improvement plan for the school year and then taking those objectives, moving them forward. So in the next few meetings, we'll have the schools bring their school improvement plans forward to discuss with the board. But coming out of the strategic plan, as well as the district improvement plan, and Mike and I actually had a meeting with our consultant Prem, was it actually Friday of that week that we had the school committee meeting, and he actually watched our school committee meeting and said, y'all are spot on in terms of how you're approaching pulling out the objectives and calling it the district improvement plan for the year. While you want to show all of the objectives eventually on the website as a 3 to 5 year plan, you can also then, tease out the plan, the objectives that we talked about. So, he said it's a really good approach. And then as it relates to the superintendent's goals, it's really keeping it in totality. Don't focus on one specific thing within the objectives. You should be focused on your job because, again, a lot of stuff falls under Mike's purview. Things fall under the purview of Brittany and for special ed, or specific building base for literacy. And my job is to ensure that all of the objectives are being met, the resources are being provided, and that as we move forward, that it is being accomplished. So you'll notice that one of the goals relates specifically just to the plan, and I call it the district improvement in here, for the year, instead of teasing out 9 different potential goals. So let me start with, any questions on that component of it? So let me start with one that we hadn't even talked about initially, and it's the first goal. And that first goal is very clearly written, I hope, that during the 23-24 school year, the superintendent will work with the high school principal to reduce chronic absenteeism for its high needs and low income students by 4 percentage points, with a target of 27% as recommended by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And I'll post this online, but I'm providing here all of the definitions of what it means, not only for chronic absenteeism, but what the rates mean, what the target means that we're supposed to be hitting as a district. And I will say that we had a a meeting with the commissioner a week ago, and he actually emphasized that all districts across the Commonwealth need to be focused on chronic absenteeism. So teasing out exactly where you want to focus. For us, at the high school level, there are two subgroups, and I'll slide down here. And you can see this, I highlighted them in red. Our high needs population and our low income population have a target. The target that we're supposed to meet is 27%. So that means 27% of the population has less than 10%, or would be at 10% of the total absentees for the year. So 18 days, if you will, 180 days, right? So currently we've got 26.5% and 28.4%, 30.4% and 35.4% in the second column of absenteeism. So that's what classifies it as chronic absenteeism for those subgroups. And so what that means is 30% of the population has more than 10% of the days absent for the year. Does that make sense?
I think the way you just described it was better than the first way.
Correct. After I said it right. So I apologize.
But yeah, so you're saying of that demographic, that's the percentage of people that are absent enough to qualify
10 or more
for-
days,
for
10% or more
chronic
days, right?
absenteeism,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
10%.
Which is 18 days, right? So more than 18 days,
But I'm
basically.
assuming it's calculated for
Based on-
based on how far through the year we are.
That is
So
correct.
If we're halfway through the year,
And
it's
also
9 days, right?
how the number of students, so students might come into the district halfway through the year, and it's really based on the number of days that they're in district.
They're enrolled.
Correct, they're
The number
enrolled.
of days they have
Right.
available. Yeah.
And if you read through the definitions, they have to be enrolled for at least 20 days to even be a part of that calculation. So what the state has put is the target number, right? So we need to be at a target number of 26.5. We're at 30.4. So so when I'm talking about a 4% decline, that's what I'm talking about. We're trying to get to the state target number. Similarly, it's 35 for low income, and the goal should be 28.4. I put 27% for both of them, rounding up to 26.5, but going down a little bit for the 28.
Does this account or allow for just sort of taking students out of the mix if, for example, they're out for a long-term medical?
No. So the way the state calculates it is it's based on excused and unexcused absences. Yeah.
So
They don't
somebody,
care about the reason.
Right.
Correct.
You're out, you're out.
Right. So we had that conversation with the commissioner. There are students who have legitimate medical reasons why they're out. How come they count against you? So you can actually appeal those as well towards the accountability structure. But
Well, and from the commissioner or the state level, is every subgroup have the same target for absenteeism?
no.
Okay.
So it depends on your district and where you were in the past.
No, so I'm talking about the subgroups because, for instance,
So the subgroup, I see what you're saying, Paul.
because someone
That's a good question. I'm not-
high needs or something like that
Yeah.
might have
I
more.
don't know that
a higher
answer.
rate of students that might
Right.
have medical reasons to be out.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it could be,
then-
remember, there's
Yeah.
the other group of students with disabilities, which I was thinking about the same thing.
You're right.
Yeah.
And depending on the circumstances.
Yeah, so these groups that we're targeting might also have more legitimate reasons
Right,
for those.
inherently, there are.
Those
yeah.
excused absences that are
Yeah,
counting against the
yeah.
statistic, but are unavoidable.
It's a good question.
because they're-
I'm not 100% sure but if Mike pulled up the DESI profile of, say, Medfield and pulled up their chronic absenteeism, I guarantee their target rate's different than ours. Yeah. So I'd have to go back to see why they actually have that target rate for us.
Right,
Yeah.
so.
And it does, but if I understand it from what you said before, the actual figures are going to be a function of sort of the proportion of the days of the whole. So, for example, if we had either really good numbers or really bad numbers as a district or as a school,
Yep.
the amount of people or the number of days that are sort of that make somebody chronically absent
Yep.
is going to change, right? If everybody's here every day and you have one person who's out 5 days and that's everything,
Right.
like that person, even though it's only 5 days, even over the course of a year, would show up as being chronically absent. because of the proportion
But it,
of the whole, right?
correct, but they look at the subgroup, and that wouldn't necessarily qualify, right? So the
Okay.
rest of the subgroup meets the target.
Right.
Therefore, you'd be meeting the expectations that they
Okay.
have. So that's really, like I said, what they're looking to do is provide, so if I slide down about what's our measurables with this, it's really, I talked to Kelly about this, is reviewing last year's data to say, okay, let's pull those kids out who are absent more than, 10 days, or 18 days, which is 10%. Start with that population, but start with the population of the low income and the high needs. And okay, why were they absent? Let's look to see, okay, start teasing them out. Here's medical, here's suspension, here's, some other reason. Maybe they just called in, right, sick, or they student called in, they're working. So one of the things that we're struggling with, obviously, is our population has changed dramatically. And we've got a lot of students who work and are not coming to school because they're helping provide for their families.
And don't we have families that take trips back to either India or
Correct.
other places
100%.
Long periods
for
of
long
time.
period of time, and those would
And
be,
those count against you.
yeah.
Right. And so,
And it doesn't take very many, those trips, because they don't
Right.
go for just a couple days.
no, they go for months at a time.
So.
Yeah. So we are trying to, part of the conversation again at the state level is, with the grant, is giving you opportunities to have these conversations with families, creating forums, using the money to have a forum, if you will, to say, hey, this is why it's important for your child to be in school. When you miss X amount of days, you're losing the ability for student academic growth, right, over time. So it's important to be in school. We have to look at our discipline policies and procedures to see how are they impacting absenteeism as well. And so while the state looks at it as absenteeism, I'm looking at it as credit recovery as well as academic recovery. That's more important to me. So how are we going to use the funds and the grants? And that's what we're going to look at, is applying for the grant for that.
And I assume you can probably first target the ones that are, I'll call it doubly chronic, in that they would meet chronic for the last couple of years, right? Because those would be
Yep.
obviously the ones that probably need to be here more because they've missed so much,
Yep.
right? And for a longer period of time, right?
Yeah, and again, I think part of this goes back to what Kelly's been trying to do at the high schools, think about the schedule, right? And think about how do we create a schedule that is better for our student population today than it was 10 years ago or 15 years ago, when we know we have 5, 8, 10% of our students who are working during the day, who need to work, and who leave out of school at noon so they can go provide and help provide for their families. Are we finding a schedule that can work for them? And that might mean night school. It might mean, if they're working during the day, it might mean a Saturday school opportunity. But the commissioner doesn't have an answer from the absentee standpoint for that yet.
Right.
We're talking about credit recovery and we're talking about academic recovery, and growth, but we're not necessarily talking about how this impacts the accountability structure of chronic absenteeism.
We need to fully understand the challenges that we face
Right.
as a district for these particular kids, and then also have strategies.
Yeah.
to bring-
And you can see, I mean, I don't want to just, think we're doing a poor job. If you actually pull up our data, and this is our data, we've done a very good job in the past 2 years of getting our students back in school. So the 20, all students we've reduced, right? I mean, we met the target line. We've exceeded the target line for certain subgroups as well. So it's really important that people understand we're got a select population that we're going to focus on this year.
Can I just ask on that point, Jim?
Yep.
I'm looking at the data here for the category described as Hispanic/Latino.
Yeah.
And those numbers look,
That should be on that list too, Mark.
yeah, that's where I was going.
Yep, I agree with you
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
Yep, nope, that will absolutely add to the goal.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, I was choosing the declined and I just missed that.
Yeah, no, if it was red versus black or
Yep,
whatever. So.
correct, yep,
Okay,
no,
good.
good, thank you. So we will add that into the goal.
Yeah, I think the benefit of this, and it might sound like or seem like and it might be a completely lazy, thing by the state, but I think what the good thing that will come out of it is now we will potentially get resources from the state to look at this
Right.
and understand it better, right? And be able to say, where are these problems, right? If we get down to the point where, hey, we have this and I can identify that it's the ones that are working, and we can identify, you can potentially either say, hey, there's no solution to this. Maybe we get down to, it's this percentage that the families travel.
Right.
We can say that it's important to stay here, but we can't tell them
Correct.
that they can't travel, and then we'll be able to address the ones we can, and maybe that changes, and if that goes up to the state,
Right.
they'll actually have some data, because right now they have essentially no data other than yes, no data, right?
Whatever we're putting into the iPass, yeah,
Right.
and submitting. So one of the factors, and we've had this conversation about when students are leaving for a month or 2 months at a time, what do other districts, what are their practices, right? And some districts used to just unenroll the kids and say, fill out a homeschool form. And now, therefore, the students are out of the record.
They're not absent.
They're not absent. But, and I can't ask our teaching staff to provide 2 months' worth of work for students who are going to be in India for 2 months, if you will, right? And we're not doing any remote learning. It would be one thing if we were, that hybrid model. We're not, and
Right.
nor do I want to be.
But I mean,
my point is,
what's really happening though, when people are leaving
Oh, God,
for
of
months,
course
they
they are.
are really basically unenrolling.
correct.
They're not here, they're
Right.
not able to do the work.
But unless we have, where if they're not enrolled in another school system,
Right.
in another district or in another country, they're still
Our
our
responsibility.
responsibility.
Yeah.
So it'd have to be, it's not just unenrolling them, it's doing they have to
The
apply for homeschooling.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So
But the
state,
There are some folks who do.
Who are
do
doing that.
Some,
I
some
don't wanna-
folks, some folks choose to do that.
Right.
Right.
But that's not,
But I think our population that are doing the long-term family visits back to the home country, that's probably smaller than the high needs population who, and what I guess, Jim, in your venture to do this
Yep.
is just a best practice that I've learned in the data analytics is get overly granular.
Yep.
Like with these kids, anxiety, we know causes a lot of times fear of school and a hard time getting out the door. And you might get them there by 9, but they weren't there for first bell, right? And getting really granular with the data where you can, even with the medical, is it dental, is it not?
Right.
Like, then we start conversations in middle school, be like, try to get the braces off before high school. Like, that's something I wish I know. And I'm an informed parent. I didn't realize how important just like missing one class in high school can be. And I wish I didn't have these stupid braces appointments that
Right.
that are-
So,
that are,
right,
you know.
but again, I think
3:00 in the afternoon.
right. I mean, it's
Exactly, and
hard.
then you're
right?
missing practice,
It's a
too.
challenge, right?
Yeah.
So but I totally understand. I think that's where Kelly will be able to, by choosing now three really specific groups, right? We can actually get that data to be very granular and to identify exactly the students we want to identify and see if there's a pattern from year to year as well, or to see if there's a pattern that previously existed, right? We're not focused on the other schools right now. We're focused on the high school because we're concerned about our dropout rate as well at the high school level. That has increased over time, partly with the change of our population.
I'll just say I'm amazed at all the groups. I mean, what the chronic absenteeism numbers are for all students.
Yep.
That just, the 16% last year, 16.5%.
2 years ago, it's 14.8
22.
last year. Yeah,
I guess I was thinking this year 23, but year
Yep,
ending.
yep,
Yeah, so
year
either
ending.
way.
Right.
Even if it's 15 or 14.
Sure.
That to me is astounding that we have
Right.
that number of
I
kids
would-
who are
But,
just.
I would look at
depending
correlating-
on how we're counting it,
Right.
they're sick a couple times, they have
sure.
a couple
Right.
doctor's appointments, and all of a
Right.
sudden,
So that's 100 and
know-
what, 120 kids approximately, something like that, that are absent more than 10% of the time.
And I would look too, Jim, potentially at when you do find these kids, what are the bus registrations, especially for freshman and sophomore
Sure.
year when they're not driving theoretically?
Right.
And are they not registering because at
Right.
that age group, there's a fee,
Right.
right?
Yeah. No, fair point.
Yeah.
So that's really goal one. Unless you want to continue to have a conversation about it, but that's
That state has determined?
Well, no, they're, I mean, they're
And-
recommending it, and
yeah.
I wanted to,
Yeah.
you know, and I talked to
Sounds
Kelly
like
about
we
it.
have some deeper digging to
We
do.
do.
And finding solutions, so, good.
So those are, you know, like I said, the measurables are review of the data, the trends, outreach, evidence of letters and calls. What are we doing, making sure that we're reaching out, application for the grant, and review of that IPASS data yearly.
And as you come back to us, I know this is what it is and the reason for it, but as you focus on those three, maybe also understand, because I'm assuming it's not, you know, almost 700 kids.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you've got
Because
some overlap.
there are some that fit probably in all three of those groups. And
Yeah.
so when
Correct.
you come back, I mean,
Yeah.
this is what it is and it's for the reason.
yep.
I'm not, but when you come back, trying to understand how many students are we really talking about that
Right.
exist, that are in this, in some combination
Yeah,
of
so
these
the high
cohorts?
needs, so theoretically, right, well, not theoretically, high needs includes all the low-income kids. That's how it works, anyway, right? So they just tease them out at the state level, but high needs does include low-income, all low-income kids. But it also includes disabilities, but also includes former EL students. So there's a population in there that's above and beyond. That's why that number's 306 versus 212, so.
And I know, Jim, this is your goal. Have you considered at all punting a piece of it to Dave so that you're looking at the 7th and 8th graders and
Yeah,
the
it'll
historical-
be,
to
so,
kind of
so
prep
once we,
for them?
yeah, once we set this, Kelly and Dave, actually, all buildings will be focused on this. It won't
Okay.
just be, you know, focused, I wanted to narrow it in on the high school because we're
Mm-hmm.
concerned at the high school level as well as that dropout rate. We're not seeing dropouts at Warren or the middle school, right? They get to the high school and they potentially drop out, so. So goal 2 relates specifically, as I said, to the strategic plan and what I am calling now the district improvement plan. Paul, you talked about that last time, but that's really what it is, and Prem was really good with that. You'll notice I just put a link to it, and I changed based on some recommendations from committee members individually. There were some metrics that we talked about that we didn't talk about last week. Let's see if I can pull it up. For instance, under resource management. Let's see here. Come on. I'll slide down. It's the last one, isn't it? Equity. Come on. There it is, right here. So, so part of the conduct regular safety assessments, secure funding to create action plans, identify safety protocols, train all full-time temporary staff. How are we going to measure that? And so Chris and I actually had that conversation. You know, what's the data we're looking at to ensure that everything is, first of all, folks are being trained. That's step one. Well, we have our ArcSed, which is our platform that we use to ensure that all trainings, mandated trainings from the district, not just at the state level, but district-wide trainings are accomplished. So we added that in here that 100% of our faculty, staff, temporary and permanent, will have all of that training done by December 1st. So something finite that we can measure. Also, our record of our fire drills that are required by state law, as well as our shelter-in-place drills that we conduct with the Ashland Police Department. You know, how are we doing? What's the feedback from them? Meetings with the safety committee, things of that nature. So we added that in there based on the feedback for the resource management. And another piece from feedback from Tina, and actually Mark a little bit, was how are we looking at the DCAPs and the BCAPs? How are we actually able to assess that they're, one, successful, two, what that data looks like? And so in this component, we just added reviewing the student IEPs and 504, specifically at the high schools, what Tina was asking. How are we doing there with those IEPs and 504s? How an analysis by the end of the year and actually throughout the year of the BCAPs, is it consistent? Mike has done presentations at all the buildings with all the staff. And he's done it with specific departments to say, this is what it looks like. This is what we expect you to do. So now we've got to then take that data and compare it. So if science teacher, math teacher, whomever participates in the BCAP process, we can look at the BCAPs to say, okay, is there consistency? Similarly, you should be able to do that from building to building to building a couple times a year, where Mike and Brittany will sit down and actually the assistant principals who help really develop all of this to say, okay, we did it well here, but we didn't do it well here. It's not consistent. So that's sort of how we're going to look at the BCAPs and DCAPs. But I think looking at how many we had last year compared to this year, what does it look like? What are our numbers? Are they improving? Are we finding more students who get on the BCAPs than we don't need to push forward to the IEPs? So, go ahead, Mike.
As well as be able to see, are these BCAPs successful in terms of our students who are receiving these sort of accommodation plans? Are they improving with their achievement, right? So be able to look at that data as well.
So those are, again, we added those indicators to this, to meet this, obviously this goal, right? So my goal is to make sure it's the implementation, but we added the indicators based on our conversation from last time.
Thank you.
Yep. And goal 3, again, specifically relates back to the conversation we had here. And I don't know if it was necessarily intended to be a goal, but I think it's appropriate that now that we have the Mendez building built, we had an education plan that we put forth to the MSBA. And while some things were accelerated because of COVID, they're still reporting out on what that plan looks like and ensuring the fidelity of that plan that we submitted is actually being adhered to. It doesn't mean everything's going to be accomplished in the first year. We actually pulled out the plan. We have it on our desk to look at to ensure that whatever model we were saying we were moving to is going to be constructed. And some of it's already being done. It's not like it's not. It's just we need to report out on it. We need to talk about this is what we said we were going to do, and I think that the community needs to hear that. And here's where we're headed on other aspects of it.
Yeah. I mean, because certainly when we made the choice to unify programming there, it was a very important topic to a lot of people. So I think even just here's where we are here and throughout the process, and that we made good on what we said we were going to do, right?
Right.
Are there other elements of that as far as the building space usage, like the outdoor classrooms and the collaborative spaces in each grade wing?
Yeah,
that
it's
are
in
part
that
of
plan.
And I think that's probably the reason you chose
Yeah.
the MSBA
Correct.
educational plan, because that justified
How
all
we
the
were building the
spaces
building.
that we
Right.
did
Yep.
in the building.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's how we got them to participate in our square footage, is because it supports the educational plan.
Right. So I added that in, and then goal 4, which was the final one, was years ago. This is probably how long ago did we do this? Probably 5, 6 years ago, 7.
At least.
So we used to do learning walks, and learning walks, in essence, are administrators coming together in each building to walk with one another, to go into classrooms and look at the evaluation tool. And so U3 and U3 get together, go into different classrooms, see a class for 15, 20 minutes, write your notes out, then eventually we come back and sit in a room and talk about, okay, what'd you see? How would you write this up as an evaluation? What recommendations would you make to this teacher? What commendations would you say to this teacher? So that one of the concerns that always exists within the bargaining units is there consistency across the district in how we're evaluating? And if we don't spend the time calibrating that and making sure that we have the same language, because we've all been trained differently in how we do evaluations, but Mike's doing a good job with working with the principals, assistant principals, and to talk about language and what does it look like. And Mike will go in and write up his commendations and recommendations, and then Paul might have a different thought on it. Okay, great. How do we make it consistent though when we write up that stuff for teachers? So we're going back to doing that. We've already done 2 so far, and we'll continue out throughout the year. So, and those were really the 4 goals. So and I think goal 2, again, has 9 components of it, if you will, so I didn't want to make it, I just wanted the implementation of the plan. So,
Looked good to me.
Yeah.
okay.
Appreciate the attention you gave to the feedback you received both at our last meeting and I know I had a conversation with you yesterday.
Yep.
And thanks to the commissioner for making sure we had 4.
Right. Right. So, so I would just ask that you approve the goals based on the changes I need to make with regard to Hispanic and Latino students in goal 1.
I would move that we approve the superintendent's goals as amended.
Second.
All in favor, Paul?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll get that published and posted online, and as we do that, we'll adjust some of the website information that seems to be still incorrect, so, that people have shared
Yes,
with me.
yes.
Names and such,
Right.
so.
I've heard that a couple times
Yep.
recently.
No, so have I.
Apparently I'm
Congratulations on
not,
your
I was
reelection.
gonna say, apparently I'm not on the board
Jim, have you
anymore.
also gotten the feedback that the mobile site sometimes is not working?
No, that I have not, but that's good to know, so.
All right,
Yep.
cool. And you don't have anything additional by way of update?
No, the only thing I want to say is I had a really fun day yesterday. Part of my job is I get to go places, right? So I spent a better part of 3 hours at Maplegate Golf Course yesterday, watching our,
I was gonna say, you had a golf course.
right, me and a golf course, imagine
We do his
that.
evaluation
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, right.
Imagine that. Watching our team play, which was
nice.
great. Mr. Anderson was over there as well in the morning. Started about 9 o'clock. It was nice and cool, and it's fun to watch some of our kids traipse around and play. It was a beautiful day, and I had one parent. We have probably our best player on the team is Rebecca Kriegsman, and she's a sophomore, and she's really good. And I picked her up on I think the sixth or 7th hole, and her dad was like, Jim, she's not playing all that great today, and then all of a sudden she reels off like 3 straight pars, and I'm like, I'm gonna go catch up another. No, you can't leave yet. Like she's playing
Really
well.
good luck charm?
And I just remember Rebecca. And I said this to Dad. I was like, she was 4. She was like this big, and I remember she played at the same golf course I did, and she was always there. And here she is now a sophomore in high school, and
Wow.
and just watching the development that she had and the commitment she had, it was just fun to see. And so it was a good time. That was my only update. It was a fun
That's a good
time.
one.
So, and tomorrow evening is, well, I can't be there, Mike can't either, but it's NHS induction tomorrow evening, so,
Yeah, I can't be there
yeah.
either.
So, but that's really it for the updates, so.
Thank you. And you're all set, Mike? Or-
Just
yeah.
last night, was able to participate in the Ash Packs Lighting the Way ceremony, which is
Yes.
always a wonderful event. They honor many of our teachers, parents nominate teachers who have made an impact in their children's lives, and it's always a great opportunity to get together and honor some of our great educators. So I appreciated that happening. Other than that, we've got conferences coming up for elementary students. So K-5 conferences means half days are coming on the 31st, early release before lunches to remind folks who might be watching at home. October 31st, November 1st, and November 2nd, our early release before lunch for our K-5 students.
So plenty of time for costumes in the afternoon.
Plenty of time for costumes in the afternoon, yes.
Thanks, Mike. Any warrant approvals, Paul?
Yes. Between September 27th, well, hold on, I probably need to read both of these, right? So we didn't have our 27th meeting? So she gave,
Paul, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure, it's pre-K to 5 early release, so I didn't want, so it's pre-K to 5, not just K to 5.
We signed off on 2 warrants.
right, so the blurb says from the 27th, but we didn't have the 27th, so I need to read both
Yes,
those.
please.
So give me 1 second to bring that up.
Let me do the gift from donations while
Wait.
holding that up.
Hold on, but we had the
We read it,
11th.
October the 11th, we read one.
Right,
Last time we were here, you said that we didn't have, that we didn't have one for you to speak to. We had no updated warrants in our last meeting.
then I don't have one now, right?
Between the 14th and 27th was the last one. This is the 27th and the 25th.
Okay.
Yeah. So this should be right.
Oh, in October 25th, okay.
Correct, yep.
So it overlaps kind of the 11th then?
Yes.
Which is odd. Okay,
Correct.
that's what's
Yep.
throwing me off here.
Yep.
So maybe it is only this one, but,
I think it's correct. Based on the minutes from the previous meeting, yes, it's accurate.
okay.
Yep.
All right, so between September 27th, 2023 and October 25th, 2023, I, Paul Kendall, authorized by my signature payables in the amount of $660,092.60. This includes general fund expenses of $226,827.45, revolving expenses of $430,018.09, and grant expenses of $3,159, and meals tax expenses of $88.06.
Thank you. Minutes from October 11th. Anybody have anything? Do you have a motion to approve?
So moved?
Second.
All in favor? Paul?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Aye. Gifts and donations?
Yes, we have a few. Decisions at every turn in the amount of $46.74, the Ashland High School Student Council, and Planet Aid residuals of $409.29 for miscellaneous gifts and donations, for a total of $456.03.
Thank you. Motion to approve the gifts and donations?
So moved?
Second.
All in favor? Paul?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Aye. And then we are already up to member updates or student updates. Do you have anything you'd like to share?
A lot to share.
Awesome.
So, okay. So about 2 weeks ago, homecoming was a really good time. At first, we thought that not too many people were going to show up, but over 500 students bought tickets, so it was a good turnout, and it was very fun. There were free baked goods, pizza was for $2, and there was a photo booth, so everyone had a lot of fun with that.
Sorry, the town manager just walked by in a pumpkin costume, for the record.
No, it's a heat miser costume.
Oh, the heat miser, sorry. Looked like a pumpkin from
I
here.
think I'm
we
going
go.
to call him Pumpkin from now
I-
on, personally, but, you know.
Well,
Sorry
that's
to
for a different
interrupt.
reason.
Oh, that's okay, no worries. The night before, though, unfortunately, the football team did lose. They lost 38-17, but it was still a really fun game. And the team is also playing Holliston this Friday, and it's actually Holliston's senior night, so it'll be an interesting night. Last week, juniors and sophomores took the PSATs, while the seniors were able to go on they could go on college trips or work on college applications, and the freshmen were required to do some community service hours. Some of them went to like different schools around town. I know my sister went to the middle school, and she helped out with one of her, I think it was her last year's math teacher, and she was there for the whole day, or maybe it was only for a couple hours, but lots of the freshmen got to do that. So let's see. The fall season for sports is kind of winding down. Cross country has their TVLs this weekend, and field hockey's down to their last couple of games this week. So hopefully they get a couple more wins before the season ends. Student Council is also organizing the high school's Thanksgiving rally. This is also the time of year where we have our traditional powder puff game. So that's with the seniors and juniors. So I'm not sure exactly. Usually it's football, but this year I think there was talk that they might do a volleyball game, which would be interesting. But I think the details are going to be finalized this coming week. So that'll be exciting, and I'm excited I get to participate. The school play, She Kills Monsters, is getting ready to perform in the next month. The show will be performing the 17th, 18th, and 19th of November. The first term is ending soon, so grades will be closing. So kids are starting to wrap up assignments and tests this coming for the end of the month. And then early action deadlines for seniors are November 1st. So I know a few of my friends are all set, they've done everything, but then some have 7 or 8 more essays to write for their applications.
Whoops.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somehow it all gets done.
Yep.
Even if it's the last minute.
and that's all I have.
I'm just going to follow up. The tickets for the fall production are actually just went on sale as well.
Oh,
So,
excellent.
so an email did go out from Mr. Harrington. I don't know if you all got it, but it should be in
saw
the
something.
should be in the newsletters as
in the
well.
newsletter.
But yeah, so
Okay.
they just started, just so you know.
Excellent.
Yep.
Thank you. That is a lot going on. Anybody else, Paul?
So let's see, at Mendez, we still are on track to turn over the bus loop and the playground before Thanksgiving, which is gonna be a big deal.
Yeah.
The surface was completed last week before. And so they're doing the landscaping and other things around the surface. I did send an email to everyone updating them on some issues we had last week with our one of the paving subcontractors. Just again, apologize to the neighbors. It was ridiculous. And that subcontractor is no longer allowed on site anymore. So, and we're correcting, and even through all that, they did a bad job. So we're redoing it this weekend so to lay it out, we hire the site contractor who subbed it out to a paving contractor. They subbed it out to this other one. The main paving contractor is taking their team and redoing it this weekend, and are committed to doing it during those hours. So
Who covers the cost of?
they do. They're eating all that. So yeah. So again, apologize to the neighbors. Nobody signed up for what happened last week. So. Let's see, also tomorrow, I believe, is the Halloween parade that will be ending up there. So that's one of the first community kind of events that will be going on there. And then I think Friday is first K&O in the new building.
If that new building can withstand that.
Yeah, we'll see.
A little bit of chaos, as I recall.
Yeah, so, well, we have more spaces for them to be in that are conducive to some of the craziness,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, I'm sure there's a handful of things I'm missing, but those are the ones I can think of.
Well, I'll give the full K&O report on how the first one in the new building goes, because I am one of the volunteers, and so I will be there from pre-opening.
God bless you.
Hey, you know, when you're painting faces for 3 hours straight, it goes by really fast.
That's the fun job.
It is a great job. I will take that any day. Yeah, so I was a volunteer at the Clocker Club homecoming game, which is its own level of like chaos and madness, but that was fun. K&O on Friday, along with what you mentioned, the football games. The freshmen are, I think, at 3:45, and then the varsity game after that. And there was one other thing. We have our safety committee meeting scheduled for November 2nd, 4th, second. Okay, I did get it right. And I feel like I'm missing a thing, but
We had our first high school site council meeting this afternoon. They've got a few new voices at the table, and a few returning voices. Most of that was spent sort of bringing them up to speed on where, like, the strategic plan and the specific strategic objectives and indicators at a sort of high level, and sort of sharing that out. Some of the things that were identified as sort of points of interest for discussion over the course of the year are picking up the conversation that started last year about our weighted grading system at the high school. Blanking on the second one, and then one of the topics that came from the floor, so to speak, today was cell phone use at the high school, and in particular concerns about a lot of different concerns, some of which are that it's inhibiting socialization, because it's not as much about the disruption during the class day, during the period, as it is this becomes the obsession.
From the second they can, they're
Yeah,
like this,
right,
walking
and
past
they're
all
not
their
paying attention to
other
anybody.
students, right?
Ms. Gallant shared that the library used to be really noisy because people were chatty, and you have to worry about that. Now they all just sit there with screens doing whatever they're doing alone. A lot of discussion about sort of how COVID has influenced different age groups. I'm not sure where that's going to go, but so anyway, those are a couple of topics that the site council talked about. Like I said, I'm blanking on the third one at the moment, and it's probably really important too. But
If you
we'll see.
remember, we'll come back to you.
Yeah, no, it'll come up next time too. So
Yeah.
anyway, it's good for them to get going.
So the cell phone policy and cell phones in general, again, are actually a statewide initiative at the Commissioner's Office again. Looking at, there's been talk of enacting some rules and regulations at the state level and what the expectations are. So it's certainly a concern that they're focused on in terms of socialization
Good.
more than anything else. So just FYI, that's one of the hot topics at the commissioner's level.
I'm the liaison for the Warren Site Council, and that's going to be starting up soon. I got a notice today for the meeting November 6th. And I also talked to Jim about now that the site councils are back in action and we're wrapping up with our improvement plan, it'll be time to bring everybody in to tell us what the plan is. I also attended the Light the Way last night. Mike did a great job speaking. They did a great job on the event. I was standing in for Tina, who's the liaison to ASHPAC. But honestly, I've been sorry that I have not attended that event before last night because it was really fabulous. All the administrators were there from the district. Chris was there. A lot of teachers, and it was really nice to see them getting recognized by parents in the district for the impact that they've had on kids. More of that, which is really great. Esmer was there. Hopefully she can highlight some of that. And great job to Brittany. Anybody else?
Didn't
All
think
right.
of it.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn?
So moved.
Didn't know he did that.
Or so second.
So second is
You
not
would
a
think
thing.
after all
All
the
in
time I know what I'm
favor?
doing.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.